Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Dustin Fox, Jason Lloyd, Tyvis Powell, plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Happy Friday and welcome to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show here on WKYC over the next 30 minutes. All things Cleveland sports. I'm Jay Crawford. The 25 Guardians fighting for their playoff lives as the 95 Indians invade Cleveland to remember when. We'll talk about both teams coming up.
Remember when the Browns had decent quarterback play? I know it's been a while. Well, could it be again this year? And how does the depth chart look right now? We'll jump into that on today's show. Jason.
Remember when the Browns had a first-round pick? Me neither. But they did have a couple draft picks last year. We're going to talk about the rookies moving into their second year and who, if anyone, could take a leap. Mike.
Plus, the Cavs traded for Lonzo Ball this season, and an NBA writer recently came up with a list of the most under-the-radar moves in basketball, and Lonzo fell on it. We're going to talk about his potential impact on the Cavs. But, Jay, we're going to start with some Browns making the jump from year one to year two. We always talk about that being the time where they can make their biggest leap. So we'll start with you, Jay. Which Brown entering year number two do you expect to make the biggest jump this season?
Give me Mike Hall. And I say that even though he flashed last year and we all think that there's a lot there for the future, we didn't get to see enough of him. He had the suspension to start, and then he missed, I think, a 5-game stretch in the middle of the season. We saw enough to think that there is something there. And now when you team him with Mason Graham, you've got Myles Garrett on the edge. I think we've got a really good defensive front. I think that. We'll find out. But other than that, guys, I wasn't really excited about anybody in the draft class last year, and I'm still not excited about anybody in the draft class from last year, talking two drafts ago.
You know, I wanted to pick somebody else because I was like, well, I'm sure the other guy's going to say Hall because, who else are you going to say? And then I looked at the rest of the list and I said, well, who else am I going to say? I mean, I have no hope for any, this year's draft class, I'm excited about. I think we're all excited about. Last year's draft class, I'm not excited about it at all. I honestly I'm not even totally confident in Mike Hall Jr.
I'm not
having
either,
to bust out.
But
he's the only one.
He's got the best chance, I think.
Is it Jamari Thrash? I mean, I don't see it.
Careful.
Is
that your guy?
I had to pick somebody.
I know, this is one of those pick your poison.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
I told Mike I'm between Mike Hall and Thrash. I think you can make a case for Thrash because they got to throw the ball to somebody. Who are they going to throw the ball to?
Yeah.
You can't throw it to Jerry Jeudy every time. So,
would 208 yards be a breakout?
No.
500. Can you get to 500?
500, I'd call it a breakout.
Did he have 50 yards? What did he have last year?
42 yards. Oh, no.
No, that was for
preseason.
I mean, what were his totals last year?
His totals last year?
Under 300.
Yeah.
If he gets to 500.
His ready for this? This was his big rookie season.
He had less than 100 yards, I think.
3 receptions for 22 yards.
He didn't even have that, even in the 45.
But if he can get to 500 yards.
500 would be, yes.
That's 30 a game. 30 a game. Can you get me 30?
I don't see it.
That's 15 times what he did last year?
That would eclipse his season total last year every week.
Yeah, but he had Amari Cooper in front of him for a little bit.
Yeah.
They had quarterbacks who couldn't throw the ball for a little bit.
Facts.
He is a rookie adjusting to the league.
Joe's going to make everyone look better. We know that.
Probably,
on both teams.
Yeah. Sad but true, yeah.
So,
you are so not in on Joe Flacco 2025.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about this?
Not in.
Everybody says that, and it's true. But for most of Joe's career when he was good, he didn't throw a lot of touchdowns or a lot of picks.
No, he didn't. But you know what? Now he's like, hey, I got nothing to lose,
He's
baby.
the complete opposite now.
Let her rip.
Someone's catching this football.
Yeah.
Don't let it hit the ground, boys. YOLO.
So it really is a YOLO. Yeah. He's at the end, man. He's like, and the thing is, he's looking around at the talent that he's going to end his career with, and he's like, I'm going to have to force windows. I might have to do something here. Let's go.
I mean, I don't feel overly confident in Jamari Thrash, but I do think that there's a path for him to be a contributor on this team.
There is.
And the rest of it's on him.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't he the number 3 wide receiver?
Right now he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
By
Okay,
default,
right now, if you had to pick, who has more receiving yards? The number 2 wide receiver or a tight end? And I'll give you the choice of either Fannin or Njoku.
I would say tight end. I would say Njoku finishes second in receiving.
I would too.
Not 1,000 as we talked about earlier. But
no, but he and Joe had a thing going.
They did.
They were vibing.
Mike, how many yards did Njoku? Did we ever look that up?
Like
900?
Njoku have with Flacco throwing to him?
I think he was close to it.
In those 5 games?
He did it all in the last half of the season.
It was 5 games.
Njoku in those 5 games, I'll have it up for you in literally 1 second here.
Mike just literally lied by saying he was going to literally have
it right here. I have it right here. He had 17, 91, 104, 44, and 134.
So he had 3 really big games out of those 5. Yeah.
I mean,
3 of his best games out of those 5.
If he goes over 100 for half of his games this year, there's 800.
Yeah.
That's
900.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
If you had to bet on
that bone, or are we moving
if you had to bet on who finishes 3rd in receiving yards,
you know what? It could be Fannin.
Could be Fannin. Could be Tillman.
Might be Dylan Sampson.
Could be Dylan Sampson.
Could be.
Wow.
I think a lot of it depends on who's playing quarterback, Jay, and that's what we're going next.
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski earlier this week announced that despite the signing of Bailey Zappi, Shedeur Sanders will be the 3rd quarterback, the emergency quarterback, at least in week 1. But earlier in the YouTube show today, Jay, you said you had an interesting theory about the Bailey Zappi signing. So fill us in on why you think the Browns brought Bailey Zappi back into the fold.
I think it's very simple. First of all, I don't know that you need a 4th quarterback. I don't think you need one on the practice squad.
No.
I mean, if most teams are in a spot where they're like, you know what, we're good with what we have. And what we'll do is, instead of tying up a practice squad spot, we'll work the waiver wire as needed if we get to that point.
Right.
To me, this screams what you touched on earlier, and that's what I planned to say in this segment was Joe Flacco is old and fragile. They know there's a very real possibility they could turn the page to number 2, Dylan Gabriel, before week 7. So if that's the case, that means Shedeur is a snap away. What happens if Shedeur is a snap away?
Right.
What they're telling you by this move is, we think Bailey is the best available quarterback right now. And that landscape can change week to week. And we know how quickly quarterbacks go down in the first couple of weeks of a season.
Right.
Bailey will be scooped up by somebody as a safety net. We better get him because we're likely going to need one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. We don't know for sure that that's the reason, but
that's my theory.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
My theory is they think
why
Shedeur
else would you keep a 4th quarterback who, in Bailey Zappi, stinks?
Right, but he's probably the best available option.
I guess.
In that he's had experience and
he's
once upon a time threw for 300 yards against the Browns.
Most teams that keep a quarterback, I feel, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like usually when you see a 3rd quarterback, a quarterback on the practice squad, because they only have 2 on the active roster.
Or it's a rookie that they don't want to expose.
Sure, fine. Well, but if you're on the practice squad, any team can sign him.
Yeah.
Yes.
As long as you put him on the 53-man roster.
You can elevate the rookie to your 3, and then you still need an insurance policy.
Right.
Because let's face it, most of the rookies that come into this league as 5th-round draft picks are not ready for the field.
No, that's true.
I mean, Kyle McCord was a 6th-round pick. He was cut.
Gone.
Did anybody pick him up?
He's on Philly's practice squad.
So nobody else wanted him, obviously.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Surprised they didn't take him. Why not?
Yeah.
Get another rookie quarterback.
What do you think? Do you see any other reason they would do this?
I think there's merit to what you're saying. Kevin came out and said that Shedeur is the number 3 quarterback, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right, easy to say that now.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So, no, I think there's merit to it, and hopefully we're not in that position because it means it's a sudden change. Joe got hurt.
Yeah.
But hopefully Zappi stays on the practice squad all year long. I don't want to see him. I'm good.
Yeah, no interest in watching Bailey Zappi.
Think about it. If we get to him, what that means our season is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because obviously, I think mission 1, maybe mission 1, 2, and 3 for this team is see what you got at quarterback.
Yep.
And if you're putting Bailey Zappi out there,
you know
2
what you
things
have at quarterback.
Happened. Either they got hurt or they wiped out and were awful.
Yeah.
And now you're just trying to be respectable and not get blown out every week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
that would be really bad. It would have to be Flacco hurt or ineffective, and then probably Dylan Gabriel getting hurt, because I can't imagine they'd bench him after like 2 weeks just for playing poorly.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do that.
All right, that brings our A block to a close. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the 95 Indians celebrating the 30th anniversary of being American League champions. Many of them are in town for this weekend series with Seattle, which, oh, by the way, is a huge series for the 25 Guardians. We'll talk about both teams when the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show comes right back. Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I love, anytime I talk about the 95 Indians, it makes me wildly happy and wildly sad because what could have been. I think it's the best team that did not win a World Series. And the irony of that is what stood in the way of that was the other great team that had a dynasty like we had not seen throughout the 90s, particularly when it came to pitchers.
Yeah.
Smoltz, Glavine, they were unbelievable. And they're the team that stood in the way of us winning ours. As they're in to celebrate 30 years, before we get to the 25 Guardians and what's at stake for them this weekend, how is that 95 team remembered for you guys?
The best offensive lineup I've ever seen in my lifetime. And the pitching is underrated because the offense gets so much of the credit. The pitching was excellent.
Led the AL in ERA.
Dennis Martinez, Oral Hershiser, Charles Nagy. It was a phenomenal team. It was a renaissance. I guess, how do I remember the 95 team? It brought baseball back to Cleveland in a big way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jacobs Field opened the year before, and it's a shame. Who knows how that season would have went had there not been the lockout. But for a team to emerge from the depths of 40 years of irrelevance to win 100 games in a strike-shortened year, there was 144 games. They won 100 of them. I've always loved baseball. Baseball was always my first passion. But that team brought the city alive, and we saw it. They're going on this big run. We lose the Browns almost at the exact same time, and that 95 season really is what allowed the Indians to carry the town for 5-6 years through that deficit where there were no Browns. You couldn't get a ticket in this town to an Indians game.
You couldn't.
It was unbelievable.
They sold out 455 consecutive games. I mean, that's like basically the equivalent of, I think, 7 seasons.
And this is before
straight.
This is before you could go on your phone and click 2 buttons and get tickets.
Sure.
You had to stand in line at Ticketmaster. You had to call, and it was ringing busy. You'd spend hours trying to buy 2 tickets to an Indians game.
I remember those years.
And the Browns weren't gone for 6 years.
No, but 96, 97, 98, those were all the Indians dominated the market all those years.
Obviously, I have the outside perspective not being here at the time. And as a kid who loved baseball, was obsessed with baseball, tried to get as much access to baseball, watching This Week in Baseball, of course, or the George Michael Sports Machine, anything I could get my hands on with baseball. As a young kid, right, in the late 70s, early 80s, it really throughout the 80s, I never really thought about the Indians because they were irrelevant.
Yep.
They were completely irrelevant in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And
they lost 100 games most seasons.
The only time I ever thought about the Indians as a kid was the big trade in '84 where the Cubs got Sutcliffe and Joe Carter went to the Indians. That was the only time I ever thought about the Indians. And so as a big baseball fan, and by the 90s you had more access to watching games and stuff.
Sure.
I loved watching those Indians teams, and long before I had any clue I was going to end up in Cleveland, I wanted them to win. Yeah. The Cubs weren't any good then.
Yeah.
I hated the Yankees, so I would always root for the Indians against the Yankees every time. I was certainly in the minority in New York, although maybe not really, because most Met fans, they hate the Yankees
Anybody
too.
but the Yankees.
Yeah. So there was they were a fun, whenever, obviously I didn't get to see them every day like you guys did, but from an outside perspective, a non-biased perspective, I remember when I get the chance to see them and I'd be like, my God, this is ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah.
How did they get all these good players? They sucked for 40 years.
Yeah.
And now they got all these great players.
Yeah, and the formula that they used, and I mentioned earlier in the YouTube show, Dan O'Dowd had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
John Hart gets most of the credit
Danny
for
was
it.
the farm director, right?
He was.
Yeah.
What they did
Neil Huntington was part of that too.
They leaned into guys that were early in their contracts and gave them all extensions. And so to those players, and this was before the Boris era really took hold, where they weren't really. Today, all those guys would say, "Nah, I'm going to roll the dice on myself and get big money."
Yeah.
Back then, you're offering Carlos Baerga, Manny Ramirez, Jim Thome, Albert Bell. You're offering these guys when they're nobodies, when they're up and coming. You're offering them stability life-changing money, they're like, yeah, I'll sign.
Yeah.
And they got the whole core of that group to do that. And when they did, it made John Hart and Dan O'Dowd look like geniuses because not only did they extend those offers, but they correctly chose the guys to give the offers to.
Yeah.
You know, you think that one or two of the Tomey, Ramirez, Bell, Baerga, one of those guys is going to flop and it's going to be a waste of money. But if you hit on two of those four, you're in. They hit on all of them, and it was a great strategy. We've seen that since duplicated by a lot of organizations. You can't do it as well today because, like I said, Quan is a guy that would be deserving of a long-term extension, but he's like, nah, I'm going to see how this plays out. I'm going to bet on myself.
Of all those great Indians hitters that are not in the Hall of Fame, and there's a lot of them, who do you think most deserves to be in there?
Well, I think, that's a different answer.
It's
Bell most deserves it, or Manning.
Yeah.
But,
to me, it's Manning.
But I think Lofton's the guy that's going to get in.
Okay. See, I think Lofton, it was a disgrace what they did to him on the ballot.
Completely agree with you.
Not only does Lofton have the numbers to match the other guys of his type of player, the Tim Raines, those type of guys. He was, and this is long before I was connected to Cleveland, he was the first player I thought of, maybe along with Derek Jeter, that I really noticed, where I was like, this guy's a winning player. Because after he left the Indians,
it was like Ricky Henderson.
Late in his career, he'd bounce around. Right,
everywhere
Ricky Henderson
went,
too.
They made the playoffs.
He would everywhere. I remember the Cubs got him one year in the 2000s. I don't remember what year it was now at this point. And I was like, I remember getting him. I said to my friend, "Oh, the Cubs are going to the playoffs this year." They got Kenny Lofton, and they did.
He was
such a winning player. There was something to it
without the power.
Yeah.
But he stole bases. He
Great
flashed
defense.
all kinds of leather in center field. It wasn't just the catches he made. He covered so much ground. You know, Manny was a young corner outfielder. Wasn't great defensively, but Kenny hit a lot of his deficiencies. Kenny's teams made the playoffs. Go look at the teams he played for and the percentage of years that he was in the playoffs. It's just like Ricky Henderson. It's a travesty that he's not in. I've got a piece running today at 5 o'clock.
Excuse me, Jay, real quick. I've got a little bit of breaking news here.
Okay, throw it out.
Are you guys familiar with Francis Romero?
Francis Romero.
He's a member of the Baseball Writers Association.
Yes, he covers the Red Sox, I believe.
He just tweeted out, sources say Cleveland Guardians right-handers Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase will remain on the restricted list and administrative leave, respectively, through the end of the 2025 season.
Well, I expected that to come. The deadline is
this
Sunday.
weekend. And
they don't do business on Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
So I expected that today would be the announcement. One of two things was going to happen, and I thought this was highly unlikely. They're either going to reinstate or they're going to suspend them indefinitely through the end of the season. And that's what we have.
Now there'll be a big story in the offseason as to whether these guys ever get to play again.
And the bad thing about that is now it's going to drag. It could drag out for months and months. You know, we thought we had a finish line of July 31st with Ortiz. Then they moved the goalpost to August 31st. I guess let's respond to that. To me, my first reaction is there's no real smoking gun yet. If they had it, they would execute it.
Then how are they suspended if they don't
I think it's all on supposition, Bull. It's all on circumstantial evidence. I told you I talked to somebody in the legal community who said this is basically, and it's not, you hate to compare anything to a murder case. Nobody died here. But in a murder case, if you have no weapon and no body, good luck. I mean, you don't even know that the person has been murdered. And now you're trying to convict someone of something you don't even know happened. It's the same thing here. There is so much smoke. There is so much circumstantial. We've all seen the videos of the pitches. What they're lacking right now is a piece of hard evidence, phone communications, things of that nature that would completely nail these guys on these offenses.
I wonder, it's going to be interesting. Like, let's say they do get reinstated. Like, that seems like good news. I'd rather have those guys on the roster.
I would too.
But if the players, especially their leader, Jose Ramirez, if he believes they did it, what's that going to be like in the locker room?
It's a good question.
Because, you
but
know.
It's not like they were throwing games. They were throwing away one pitch of an at-bat.
But you know what, Jay? I mean, one pitch could make the difference.
I know.
And maybe if Clase hadn't been suspended, maybe if Ortiz hadn't been suspended, they'd win more games.
That's the bigger issue.
And if I'm Jose, I'm pissed.
It calls into the integrity of
the
how can you trust them? How can you trade them? They were going to trade Clase.
Yeah, well, now they've got no value.
No.
Even if they're
Who's gonna trade
reinstated.
for him now?
Right.
Nobody.
No.
Nobody. Although, teams love to win, and they're blinded by closers that are lights out.
You may be able to trade him, but you're going to get a fraction
Not the same
of the
value.
Yeah.
No,
So the smart play would be to keep them and roll the dice. But that's a great point, Bull. The clubhouse is always going to look at these guys.
It's going to be interesting to
with
see.
the side eye. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, was the move for Lonzo Ball a top 5 under-the-radar move in this NBA offseason? One notable writer says it was, and we'll discuss coming up. Mike, set this up. A trade that could end up being very, very big for the Cavs, but didn't really make much noise when it happened.
No, we talked about the Lonzo Ball trade. The Cavs obviously traded Isaac Okoro to the Bulls, got Lonzo Ball back, and Brian Martin of NBA.com wrote an article last week on his 5 most under-the-radar moves of the offseason, moves that didn't draw the same attention as some of the blockbusters, and Lonzo Ball came in at number 5 on that list. We'll run through the top 5 real quick. He had Tyus Jones signing with Orlando at number 1, the Lakers signing Jake LaRavia at 2, Jay Huff going to the Pacers at 3, Luke Cornett going to the San Antonio Spurs at number 4, and then the Lonzo trade at 5. Health is the big question with Lonzo, but Jason, how big of an impact do you think Lonzo can have on this Cavs team, and would you agree with Brian Martin that this could be one of the more underrated moves of the offseason?
Compared to the rest of that list, I'd actually have it probably
I never even heard of 2 of those guys.
Yeah, I'd probably even have it a little bit higher than that. If Lonzo's healthy, he's going to help this team. The question is, can you keep him healthy in April, May, and June? Can you get him to April, May, and June?
Yeah.
He's had chronic injuries. It just hasn't been able to stay on the floor. If he's on the floor, yeah, he's going to help them. And you're only committed to him for 1 year. He's an option year after that. So it turns out, like, the way that this all worked out, I thought really worked out in their favor. They had been trying to move off Okoro's money earlier in the summer. They couldn't get off it clean. So this, to me, was a pretty good alternative to take a 1-year flyer on a guy at $10 million and see what you can get, because he's a facilitator. He's one of those guys that can really sort of be a glue guy and just create for others on the court. And with some of the injuries that they've had already, you're going to get a look at him. I don't think you're going to see him on back-to-backs, nor should you at all at any point this year. Probably won't play back-to-backs. They'll limit him in practice. But if he's healthy and on the floor, he can help them in the playoffs.
I think that's the big thing for Kenny Atkinson is you've lost 2 of your top rotation players, including a superstar in Darius Garland, or a star. And there might be a tendency, if Lonzo Ball's playing well, to want to play him a lot early in the season when they have a lot of minutes to go around, and they've got. I'm generally not in favor of babying players, but in his case, he's been so injury prone.
No, they're pretty disciplined, and we saw that when they got off to that incredible start last year. They still sat Donovan against, I think it was Boston, wasn't it? They had
it was Boston. Yeah, because that was part of the plan.
So they're pretty disciplined about minutes, and we had that whole debate at the end of the year. Do they not play guys enough? Were they not ready to run? So I think that they will be very responsible with his minutes. They'll keep a cap on him. I have no idea what that number is now. I would imagine it won't be a lot early. You kind of want to build with him. If he's healthy now, you do everything you can to keep him healthy. And you don't keep him healthy by playing him 30 minutes on the opening night. So just gradually build, and make sure he's ready in April, May, and June.
Yeah, the one thing we're going to have to remind ourselves, and the Cavs, I'm sure, are going to remind themselves the whole year, this is a marathon. Yeah. It's not a sprint. It doesn't matter what you are in November. It matters what you are in April. And for the last couple of seasons, we have underperformed in the biggest moments of the year, and a lot of that had to do with injuries. If there are basketball gods, and you believe that these things over time even out, we're due a healthy April. We're due.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had it. And you can make strong arguments that it ended our season both times. So because the Cavs have been burned by this, I think they're going to be very careful with them. And I agree with you guys. I think if this season for the Cavaliers ends in a championship, I think a lot of things have to happen. Evan Mobley has to take another step. It looks like he's putting in all kinds of work to become even better. I think that's the biggest thing that has to happen. But also, Lonzo has to be a guy that contributes in the playoff stretch. Yeah. And for him to do that, he's got to be healthy. So I like the move. I'm with you guys. I think I'd even put it higher than number 5 on the underrated moves. Yeah. But we'll see how it all shakes out. What do we have? About 30 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Quickly, OSU, Texas. I'm going Buckeyes in a rather high-scoring and close game.
That's what I said yesterday.
Oh, you did? Okay.
35-34 Ohio State.
Wow, that's right where I'm thinking, Bull.
Yeah, I don't think it's that high.
He's got a lower scoring.
Yeah.
I think it'll be lower scoring. I do
Okay.
like Ohio State to win at home. I said I think Arch is going to look rough, and then people are going to lose their minds and go, "This is the quarterback everybody wants. This guy stinks."
Maybe will happen. Go Buckeyes. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Peace.